Namaste to one and all, welcome to my channel. Today's topic is nationalism in India, that is 10th standard CBSE history. Here we are talking about the formation of nation state, that is people are understanding who they were and what defined their identity and sense of belonging. That is emerging as a new nation after colonialism or imperialism. New symbols, new icons, new songs and ideas forged new links and redefined the boundaries of communities. And second paragraph is telling about in India as in Vietnam and many other colonies, the growth of modern nationalism is intimately connected to the anti-colonial movement. Here, Congress had established in 1885, formation of Congress in 1885, and the Congress and Mahatma Gandhi tried to forge the different groups because different groups were involved in the freedom fight. And you have studied this earlier, and here this textbook is, this chapter is focusing on 1920s. What are the movements by different groups engaged in that we are going to learn about the non-cooperation civil disobedience movement. See the first importance of the First World War, Khilafat and non-cooperation movement. Yes, the years after 1919, what about the national movement emergence? It incorporated new social groups, developing new modes of struggle. And first of all, why the First World War is important for us? First World War started from 1914 to 1918. And this First World War, why the First World War is influencing Indian national movement? The thing is that Britain was one of the Britain participated in the First World War. So most often the income they want to raise, it was from India. So a huge increase in defense expenditure, which was financed by war loans and increased taxes. Custom duties were raised and income tax were introduced. So the British started to impose new taxes, increased taxes and customs duties, and they raised money to find out the expense incurred on the First World War. So through the war years, prices increased, doubling between 1913 and 1918. Here it is written 1913 and 1918. You know that the First World War occurred in 1914 and 1918 in between, and leading to extreme hardships for the common people. Villages were called upon supply soldiers as they needed soldiers other than the defense people. They forced recruitment in rural areas, caused widespread anger. Understand, children, that Indians, they were not participating in the First World War, but yet you know that our soldiers were recruited for the First World War. And then in 1918 to 19 and 2021, the crops failed in many parts of India, resulting in acute shortage of food. This was accompanied by an influenza epidemic. And according to 1921 census, yes, in India the census started in 1911, and in 1921 12 to 13 million people perished as a result of famines and epidemics. Yes, we also came across that time of a pandemic situation. The same thing happened 100 years ago. And here next comes, yes, people hoped that their hardships would end after First World War. But that didn't happen. Then the idea of Satyagraha. Mahatma Gandhi returned to India in January 1915 from South Africa, that you know. And here he was against racist regimes, racial discrimination, what he experienced even in Africa, with a novel method of mass agitation which he called Satyagraha. The idea of Satyagraha emphasized the power of truth and need to search for truth. Yes. So this Satyagraha emphasized the power of truth and need to search for truth. It suggested that if the cause was true, if the struggle was against injustice, then physical force was not necessary to fight the opposer. So Mahatma Gandhi believed in Satyagraha because he is standing for the truth. If we are standing for the truth against injustice, we don't want any materials to fight or physical forces like arms and ammunition to fight against that. So without seeking vengeance or being aggressive, the Satyagraha could win the battle through non-violence. So this could be done by appealing to the conscience of the oppressor. So people, including the oppressors, had to be persuaded to see the truth instead of being forced to accept truth. So Mahatma Gandhi believed that the dharma of non-violence could be unite could unite all Indians. After arriving in India, Mahatma Gandhi successfully organized satyagraha movements in various places. In 1960, he traveled to Champaran in Bihar. Why in Champaran in Bihar? That is, the people of the agriculture, poor farmers are forced to cultivate the indigo for British is cotton textile mills. So they forced to cultivate the indigo, that is a blue type of dye, for the cotton textile mills, and they were not allowed to produce wheat or rice in their farm field. You understand how pathetic conditions the peasants confronted. They were cultivating these type of things, indigo, instead of the food. So the peasants struggle against this oppressive plantation system. Then in 1917, he organized satyagraha to support peasants of Kheda, district of Gujarat. And affected, 1916, 1970, and affected by crop failure and plague epidemic. Yes, the peasants of Kheda could not pay their revenue because that they were affected by crop failure and plague epidemic. And in 1980, Mahatma Gandhi went to Ahmedabad to organize Satyagraha movement among cotton mill workers. Yes, so what about the Champaran? On the basis of the map question, it is very, very important. Champaran, Kheda, and Ahmedabad, he went for the Satyagraha movement just after he returning from South Africa. Then the Rowlatt Act, emboldened with the success, Gandhiji in 1919 desired to launch a nationwide satyagraha against proposed Rowlatt Act. What about the Rowlatt Act? This act hurriedly passed through the Imir Legislative Council despite the united opposition of Indian members, without getting sanction, without, that the Indian members didn't allow to pass this Rowlatt Act, but without the consent of Indian members, the Imir Legislative Council passed the bill. What the bill tells government enormous powers to repress political activities. They wanted to repress political activities. The Britishers came to understand that is Indians started to rebel against them, so they wanted to suppress it. They wanted to repress it and allowed detention of political prisoners. Detention of political prisoners means they want to keep them in their custody without trial for 2 years. Without trial. You understand? That is a major drawback of this Rowlatt Act. Suppose a person has to be imprisoned, then that it should be trial. Trial should be taken into account. Trial should be done. But without trial, any person can be put into prison for 2 years. So Mahatma Gandhi wanted non-violent civil disobedience against such unjust laws, which would start with a hartal on 6th April. So he started 6th April, the hartal, because of this reason. So Rowlatt Act understood repress political activities. Britishers got enormous powers to repress political activities. That means detention of political prisoners without trial for 2 years. Then coming to next paragraph, we can tell that what about the various cities, workers went on strike, railway workshops, shops closed down, alarmed by the popular upsurge, the scared that lines of communication such as railways and telegraphs would be disrupted. British administration desired to clamp down the nationalists. Local leaders were picked up from Amritsar and Mahatma Gandhi was barred from entering Delhi. So they came to understand that the Indians started their agitation in different parts of our cities, and so they wanted to suppress it, and Mahatma Gandhi was not allowed to enter Delhi. On 10th April, the police in Amritsar fired upon a peaceful procession, provoking widespread attacks on banks, post offices and railway stations. And martial law was imposed and General Dyer took command. The military authority is getting more power. That is a martial law, and they are becoming an authority, and they are General Dyer. On 13th April, the infamous Jallianwalla Bagh incident took place. On that day, without knowing the martial law, that the people were gathered there to protest against the government's new repressive measures. But that as others had come there to attend the Baishagi fair, and the people were unaware of the martial law, and Dyer entered the area, blocked the exit points, all the gates were blocked, and opened the fire on the crowd. Really, it killed hundreds of people, of Indians, and his object has declared later that he wanted to make a feeling of terror and that is produce a moral effect on the people of India. And because of the Jallianwalla Bagh massacre, crowds again started to fight against the Britishers. Crowds took to the streets in many North Indian towns, but again the Britishers started responding brutally, and they were seeking humiliation of the terrorists. Satyagrahis were forced to rub their noses on the ground, growl on the streets, do salute to all sahibs like that. Even the bombing also took place in Gujranwala in Punjab, that is now in Pakistan. While the Rowlatt Satyagraha had been widespread movement, it was still limited mostly to cities and towns. Mahatma Gandhi now felt it should be broad-based movement. It should be a broad-based movement because it was focusing only on the Rowlatt Act. Satyagraha was focusing only on the cities and towns, so he wanted to expand it. But by that time, First World War ended, and the Hindus and Muslims, he wanted to unite the Hindus and Muslims. Here, why unite Hindus and Muslims? The Britishers were telling the Muslims that all difficulties were created by Hindus, and they were telling to Hindus that all the difficulties were done by Muslims. Really, they taken a tact of dividing Hindus and Muslims, that is meant by divide and rule system. Really, that is one of the important challenges that India is facing. Really, that Mahatma Gandhi wanted to bring them together, and one way of doing, he felt take up Khilafat issue. What about the Khilafat issue? After the First World War, the defeat of Ottoman Turkey, the head of the Ottoman Turkey, that is Khalifa, that is spiritual head of the Islamic world, Khalifa. The British reduced the power of Caliphas. So in order to retain that, Khilafat committee was formed in Bombay in March 1999. There, Muhammad Ali and Shaukat Ali began discussing with Mahatma Gandhi the possibility of united mass action on the issue. Gandhiji saw this as an opportunity to bring Muslims under the umbrella of a unified national movement. And at the Calcutta session of the Congress in September 1920, he convinced others leaders of the need to start non-cooperation movement in support of Khilafat as well as for Swaraj. So Gandhi and Shaukat Ali and Muhammad Ali, the brothers, they also together they started a movement against Britishers on the ground of Khilafat and on the ground of Swaraj. Then why non-cooperation? In his famous book Hind Swaraj 99, Mahatma Gandhi declared that British rule was established in India with the cooperation and had survived only because of this cooperation. So he understood that, Mahatma Gandhi understood that the cooperation should be limited, or cooperation should be avoided. Then India will become free, because the Britishers are ruling here only because of the cooperation of Indians. So he, that he used the next movement, that is, it should begin with the surrender of the titles. He wanted to non-cooperate with the British. He wanted to surrender the titles that the government awarded and boycott of the civil services, army, police, courts, legislative councils, schools and foreign goods. That is, that here they wanted to avoid all the things and all the even the institutions, police, courts, legislative council, schools and foreign goods. Then in case the government used repression, a full civil disobedience campaign started, and through the summer 1920, Mahatma Gandhi and Shaukat Ali toured extensively, mobilizing popular support for the movement. So many within the Congress were, however, concerned about the proposals. They were reluctant to boycott the council elections. Yes, they asked to boycott the council election also, scheduled on November 1920, and they feared that the movement might lead to the popular violence. In the month between September and December, there was an intense tussle within the Congress. For a while, there seemed no meeting point between the supporters and the opponents of the movement. Finally, at the Congress session at Nagpur in 1920, a compromise was worked out and the non-cooperation program was adopted. So why? You know that they were not interested. They were not interested to boycott the council election scheduled in November 1920. So the Congress session at Nagpur made a compromise, was worked out.